Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video from Radio 1.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's such a pleasure to connect with my Radio 1 listener. And I'm so keen for everybody to hear your story, Sonali. So I'm going to ask you for your backstory. I know that you've turned adversity into opportunity, from a failed marriage into successful co-parenting. So let's get a little bit of your backstory to start things off.
Hi, Erica. Thank you so much. So to start off with, going a little bit into my story. So I was a homemaker for 11 years, and life doesn't always turn out the way we planned it to be. So when unfortunately my marriage did collapse after 11 years of being, in the conventional housewife space, me and my ex-husband, we very mutually kind of decided that we are not going to let this affect our parenting, because it's very essential that the child does not have to go through the negative impacts of what a couple is going through in terms of their personal relationship. So since this was a very mutual decision, it kind of became very easy and accessible for us to be able to do this for our son, who was really young back then. And I think it is just about really making a determination and a sort of a commitment to yourself that you are not going to let this affect your child negatively, and it has to be mutual, because then that's the only way it kind of can go forward.
Okay, it also is about sacrificing, correct? Because you have to sacrifice oneself, the way you're feeling, the way your relationship has disintegrated, your marriage has disintegrated, but you give it all up for the sake of, say, another human being, which in this case is your child. So how did you and your husband actually come to terms with this and decided, okay, let's forget about ourselves for the moment and let's put our child first?
I think it's about, really looking at this by putting I wouldn't even call it a sacrifice. I would really talk about looking at it as keeping egos aside. Because what I've noticed usually in failed marriages, why are the couple not being able to co-parent, amicably and sort of in a mutual way, is because there is always some sort of a resentment, some sort of an ego clash that is stopping one of the parent in kind of coming together for the child. But in our situation, we made a very conscious decision. I mean, of course, initially, no breakup is like a golden handshake, right? But we were very clear that we are not going to let this come in the way of co-parenting, because it is extremely important that the child may know that the parents are not together. But as long as the child knows that the parents are working as a unit, for the child's happiness and for the child's security, I think that's all the child needs to know, because they just need to know that their parents are their pillars and they're there for them.
Right.
So it was about not getting into the space of resentment and ego.
That's wonderful. So, for couples who are probably going through a similar situation that you did, 11 or 12 years ago, or whatever, and are finding themselves, constantly being confronted with not being able to find an amicable solution going forward, what would you like to share with them? Or what would you like to say to them?
I think I would request, parents especially who are going through a divorce or a separation, is to always remember that they're not just a couple anymore, right? You're not just a husband and wife, or you're not just a husband and wife who are parting ways. You are now something a lot more than that. You're parents. So when you are parents, you hold a much bigger responsibility than just what the two of you all share. So the fact that when two people decide to part ways, it is anyway going to have consequences on the children. So when the consequences are going to any which ways take place, they have to be a lot more sensitive to the fact that they have to bring the child's well-being as their priority, because the child is dependent on them.
Now, your life as an example of empowering yourself and learning to dissociate from social conditioning. A little bit about your backstory before we jump into how you've managed to empower yourself and dissociate from social conditioning.
Yes, Erica. So coming to the first question about empowering myself, I would just like to talk a little bit about how I got to the state of empowering myself, right? Because, beginning your life from scratch at the age of 40 is a huge challenge by itself. And the only reason I think I found that self-empowerment was, thanks to having a mentor in life. And that's when I realized that having any sort of a mentor, whether it is someone in your family, someone amongst your friends, it doesn't have to be anybody specific, but just someone who can be a sort of a lighthouse to give you direction, and just all you need is just that one person to believe in you.
Yeah.
And you have that one person who believes in you, who tells you, who reassures you that, wherever you may be in life, you're not stuck and you are going to find a way forward. And that's all you need to start finding that empowerment within yourself and to keep pushing forward, right? So that's where I found my empowerment, through my mentor and through his guidances. And that's where I started making up my mind that I am not going to let this break me or limit me any further.
Yeah. So we know that, you reached a crucial point in your life. You found that your marriage is falling apart. You found that you had, nowhere to go to, no foreseeable future. And yet you managed to find, like you said, you're lucky enough to find the mentor that worked for you, and you found your pathway. And I believe yoga is it. So now you are a yoga teacher. You're passionate about this hobby. You're dedicated to it. So a little bit about that journey.
So I found my calling in teaching yoga professionally, and I was very, very certain that I was going to only turn my passion into my profession, because as a person, I only work from my heart. So if my heart is not in what I'm doing, I know I won't be able to stick to it, and I know I won't be able to grow. So my deepest prayer and my determination was that I must be able to find something that I'm truly, truly passionate about and turn it into my profession. And rest assured, I did find yoga in my journey. It was not something that just happened, like, it just kind of happened. I went through my journey, I went through my struggles, and then finally I realized that this was it. I was going to turn yoga into my full-time profession. And there has been no turning back ever since. It has grown so organically and beautifully in these last 5 years that it is my full-time job. But I wouldn't even call it my job, because it is my passion. And I love every moment of it.
So, coming from a society like India, where we are really decided by society, and the societal norms can sometimes, I would say, I wouldn't say strangle us, but definitely shackle us. So someone like you, who's faced the challenges, come out of it on top, having to deal with, social conditioning, society norms, as a single mom, single parent, coming from a broken marriage and then rebuilding your life. How did you deal with that? And, what can we learn from it?
So for this, Erica, I have to give complete credit to my upbringing. And thanks to my parents, I was never brought up in any kind of a society pressure, in trying to keep up with the Joneses and, all of those society conditionings that most of the people living in today's day and age are kind of, as you said, entangled in. And I think I'm very fortunate, because my parents always gave me and my brother wings to fly. And they always taught us to live our lives very truthfully, in utmost honesty and what was true for us, because society conditioning, unfortunately, to a great extent, is always going to be there. Yeah. But how much are we going to get influenced by it negatively or positively? Again, it comes down to us. So I think in that aspect, I think my upbringing always gave me that kind of sort of confidence and that kind of freedom to know that I am not sort of going to be pulled down by society conditioning, and that I have the freedom to make my own choices.
I'm going to come to the topic of faith. They say faith can move mountains. So my question to you is how to never lose your faith in yourself, also faith in others, and faith in the universe as a whole. You've been through some serious challenges in your life, and you've come out on top, being in control, empowering yourself, and moving forward with positivity. So talk to us about the importance of having faith.
Yes. So I think faith is the fundamental reason, I think, how I've been able to kind of surmount all the obstacles and really transform them into my greatest, victories and breakthroughs. And I would say that, faith is something that I have kind of, grown up with very naturally as a part of my essence. Because as a child, I always believed in the power of prayer. I come from a Parsi school, and every morning we would have, these Parsi prayers, and, the teachers would say them with so much of like kind of sincerity. And though I come from a spiritual family, not a religious family, but I always, saw my mom also praying with a lot of, there was deep sincerity in it. So I think somewhere on a subliminal level, I had this absolute conviction that there is power in prayer.
Yep.
Now that prayer could be, whatever it, works for whoever, but we have to have that faith that there is a higher power watching over us, and it is within us, it is around us. And I think it is only this faith that has enabled me to be able to even see the goodness in people and trust people. Because when we are constantly, in doubt, I think then that's what we even somewhere manifest. We manifest somewhere people letting us down, because we are constantly in that doubt that someone's going to let us down, or someone's going to cheat us, or someone's going to, take us for a ride. But
Yeah.
I always chose to always see the best in people, see the best in situations. And I think somewhere that has really, really worked for me.
Okay. Well, that's wonderful. And that's a great take home lesson there. Never to lose faith in yourself, in people about you, and in the universe, in the whole. I simply think that, you send your prayers out to the universe and it does get answered no matter what. In some form or fashion, it does
Absolutely.
that. All right.
Absolutely.
So, Sonali, today I really want you to share your journey about discovery. Discovering and embracing your inner potential. A lot of us don't know how to acknowledge it. Sometimes are scared of our inner strengths and our potential, and don't want to embrace it. So, discovering and embracing your inner potential, your sense of self-belief, self-love, and importantly, self-care.
Yes, this is actually my favorite. This is something that I'm very, very passionate about, because the truth is, Erica, that, as human beings, what I have really understood from my life experiences is that our fundamental disbelief is the lack of belief in our own abilities. We always tend to not give ourselves due credit, or, the kind of recognition that we feel we owe ourselves. We never give that to ourselves. Again, I think that somewhere comes from some sort of the negative influences of society conditioning, which we have to break through, right? And as I spoke in the previous show, that I have always been someone to not be negatively influenced by society conditioning. And what I have realized through my journey is that the day I decided to not look at myself, to not look down at myself, and not to look at myself with any limitations, and actually tap into that limitless potential, which I have learned again from my mentor, who has very, very significantly brought up this aspect that every human being is born with your own unique limitless potential. And when I heard that, I just felt so empowered the first time I heard that. By just hearing that, I was like, wow, we all have a limitless potential. How amazing is that, right? And that's what I took away with, and I decided to base my life on finding my limitless potential. And from there on, my journey has grown so organically and beautifully, where today I have established a wonderful clientele from Bollywood. I have clients from across the globe, and it's just been all so seamless, and it's just been so beautiful. And it's only been because of this belief that I created this shift, from this disbelief of my limitations to my belief in the limitless potential. And that's what I want to share with all of the the listeners today, that please believe in the fact that we all have our own unique limitless potential, and the only way we can tap into it is when we start believing in it, because till we don't believe in something, we can't walk that path.
Right. And therefore you're called
Limitless.Sonali.
Yep.
That's me on Instagram.
Limitless.Sonali. I loved today's life lesson. Thank you so much for that. Coming to self-love and self-care, well, some would think it borders on being, a little bit too selfish rather, or narcissistic even. But it's important for us to love ourselves first, correct? If you don't love ourselves for what we are, we cannot really give out or give back to society and the universe.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is such a fine line, as you said, Erica, between self-love, self-care, and selfishness, right? Because I would say that when we are not looking after ourselves, and when we are not nurturing ourselves, we are somewhere creating a disservice for our own life, right? And selfishness is something where, we do not care about anybody around us, and it's all about just going into a space of vanity. So there is a vast difference between being vain and between being humble, and somewhere finding your that balance in looking after yourself, nurturing yourself, because we can't pour out of an empty cup, right? Your cup has to be full in order to be able to give back or even nurture your own family. Today, if I want to look after my son, I want to look after my father, my friends, my students. Today, as a yoga teacher, if I have not been looking after myself, whether it's emotionally or physically, I can't add that value to the lives of my students.
Yeah.
So I think it is so important to first nurture ourselves and not feel guilty about it.
Yeah.
I have so many students who tend to feel really guilty about the fact that they're like, oh, I feel guilty taking time out. I feel guilty leaving my kids behind and then going out to, spend time with my friends.
Mhm.
Like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's about just creating that balance, right?
Yep.
The kids
Okay.
also need a break from the mothers.
True that. But I love what you said. You can't pour out of an empty cup. That will stay with me for a while. Here's my favorite topic. It's never too late to start afresh or to start anew. Age ain't nothing but a number. And I think you are an example of that. So let's have your story, Sonali.
Yes. So, Erica, as I shared earlier, I started my journey at the age of 40. I went on to do a yoga certification course as a professional teacher at the age of 40. When I shared that with my family and friends, to be quite honest, I got a very straight face emoji reaction where they were like, "What? Like, you're going to train to become a yoga teacher?" And I was like, "Yes, I'm going to train to become a yoga teacher." And the irony is that because of the kind of sort of emotional roller coaster ride that I had been through,
Yeah.
yoga had actually disappeared from my life for a few years. And it is only when I went into this deep introspection and retrospection, to kind of get my bearings back, to find my passion, to turn it into my profession,
Yeah.
is when I had that light bulb and that aha moment that, okay, this is it, yoga is it, and I'm going to go for it, and I'm going to be damn good at it, And so the fact that, I decided to do this, and yes, a lot of reactions were like, oh, but you're 40, and will your body be able to handle it, and
Right.
all of that, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot, because nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah.
And I surprised myself. May I just say so? I saw my body reversing. I saw my body reversing completely.
Wow.
I could see the flexibility coming in even stronger than ever before, because I really believe it is mind over matter. Erica, when the mind is strong and when we have made up our mind, the body is only going to follow suit.
Right.
Right. The body is the slave of the mind. So it's when the mind gives up, the body is going to collapse. But once the mind decides that, hey, I ain't aging, I'm going to remain young for as long as I can, the body is going to support you.
Right.
And I'm a living example of that.
I must say, you are glowing, Limitless Sonali. I must say that, and age ain't nothing but a number. I completely agree. I so agree. And mind over matter, agree with that as well. So I thank you so much for sharing your life story with us. It's been a fantastic week of revelations and inspirations coming from you. Thank you so much for, trusting in us to share your story and carry it forward.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. And let's all of us stay limitless and stay youthful forever.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video from Radio 1.